On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, I'm joined by a super special guest today, and we're going to be previewing and predicting this Week 12 matchup of number 6 Oregon at Arizona State. We'll also be giving our 3 keys of the game, and then finally, our final score prediction. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast. Talking all things Oregon football. With your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. The date is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you, people. I'm joined by the one and only Richie Bradshaw, host of Locked On Sun Devils, and we are here to preview and predict number 6 Oregon versus Arizona State. Arizona State coming off a nice win in the Rose Bowl last weekend. They've won 2 out of the last 3 games. 17-7 was the final score of that Sun Devil UCLA game. I'm sure my guy Richie right here is feeling fired up like a Sun Devil right now. How are we feeling today, Richie?
I really like that you said 1, 2 of the last 3 games. That makes me feel a lot better about a 3-win season. But we are coming off a really rock solid win in Pasadena against UCLA. They were a good team, very good defensively. There was a lot of positives to take. There was a lot of lessons that needed to be learned. But overall, I feel like it was definitely a game that you could really build off of. And unfortunately, you're running into a buzzsaw that is number 6 Oregon. So take everything that you just learned and really hope that maybe it comes around. But as Ducks fans will see later in the show, I'm not as optimistic as I would like to be.
Hey, man, I've been watching the games, especially that Washington game. I was definitely tuned into that one, how close that one. And you guys got a pesky team. These games, you've lost a few, but a lot of them have, a handful of them have been pretty close, 1-score possessions, and we'll get into it. The Duck fan base, we're feeling real good right now. Solid win, 36-27 victory over USC at home. Certainly wasn't our best game of the season, but no doubt a win's a win. Especially against the University of Spoiled Children, am I right?
Absolutely.
I'm just.
Oh no, I'm with you. For sure.
Yeah, man, that was fun. That was an awesome game, and it was awesome to see all the fans out there too. I was actually at that game, so it was great to meet all the people who tune into the podcast here and there and give us a thumbs up, give us a subscription. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Richie, before we get started, before we get into this whole thing, I always like to introduce our guests and get into where can we find your work. I know you do Locked In with all things Sun Devils, but we're Locked On Sun Devils, excuse me. But where else can we find your work? I know you do some other things, man.
Yeah, I do all sorts of stuff. Definitely a lot of Sun Devils content that I'm covering with the Locked On Podcast Network. I mean, that's Monday through Friday, given content for football, basketball, any little thing in between. I try to cover it there. I do a little bit of coverage for the Arizona Cardinals if for some reason there are fans there, but I imagine most of you are probably Seattle Seahawks fans with it being a regional kind of thing. But definitely do a lot of work with the Valley stuff, but a lot of emphasis on Arizona State stuff.
100%. So if you guys, you want to lock in with Arizona State, Arizona Cardinals over there, hey, lock in with my guy, Richie Bradshaw, right here. Oregon's coming into this game 9-1, 6-1 in conference play, while the Arizona State Sun Devils are 3-7, 2-5 in conference play. Certainly not the season that former Oregon offensive coordinator and current Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham wanted this year in year 1, but the Sun Devils have been quite a scrappy team. Like I mentioned earlier, they have 7 losses, but you look at a handful of those games, and they've been really close. They lost to Cal by 3, Colorado by 3, Washington by only 8. I mean, Kenny has his guys competing and being a scrappy team that can sneak up on you and be dangerous. Kickoff time, 1 p.m., guys, 4 p.m. Eastern time if we got any Eastern folks out there. Mountain America Stadium. Hey, I want to see the Sun Devil fans pack it. I love, I get it. I'm a Duck fan, but I love hearing big crowds. I get it. It's a down season, but you guys got a juggernaut. Let's pack it. I know it gets crazy out there in the desert, and it's November. We all got shades of 2019 out here as Duck fans. So, hey, Cross our fingers, Duck fans. Let's get this done like we're supposed to, right? Let's go ahead and show some Oregon uniforms. I like to show these off because they did drop today. I got it on my Instagram here real quick. It's always a fun thing, right? This is what kind of Oregon's known for is their uniforms. This is what they're going to be pulling out for this game. They usually go with the color white. That's what I expected, and that's what they pulled out. They got the eggshells once again with the chrome helmet. Really like that, man. Really like what Nike's doing. Really like the combos are coming out.
Don't miss.
I love it, man. I love it. This guy in the comment saying people are hating on these. This is one of my favorite combos, the eggshells. Exactly.
Those
I get it.
eggshells are amazing. I love the eggshell.
And Oregon fans, man, they can get spoiled. Like the eggshell, we got so many combinations. We want a new one every time. We pulled out the eggshell a few times. I get it. It's been a little consistent. But think about if you were just like any other school, Duck fans, we would only have 2 combinations. You know what I mean? Like Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, let's not get spoiled here. These combinations are clean every week, man. I absolutely love it. Love to cover that. All right, I appreciate everyone joining in here. I'm joined by Richie Bradshaw, host of Locked On Sun Devils, preview and predicting number 6, Oregon, Arizona State. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. If you listen to this on Spotify after it's recorded, please rate us 5 stars. I give you 2 podcasts a week, recruit interviews after the season's over. And if you want the quickest updates about all things Oregon football, go to @DuckZone503. We're talking all things Pac-12 ball as well. Plus, we're off to the Big Ten next year, so that's going to be fun to talk about that next year. Thank you for everyone for doing so. All right, guys. So, last time we talked, all right, college football world just couldn't keep Dan Lanning's his name out of their mouths because his name was attached to that Texas A&M job after Jimbo Fisher got canned for $72 million. We talked about it. Also, last time we talked, I told you that, one, you should expect this when any big-time head coaching job opens up because Dan Lanning is winning and recruiting like a top college football head coach right now. So just expect that when these things kind of happen. Number 2, I told you the one and only single thing that Texas A&M could really offer Dan Lanning that would be greater value than what the Oregon head coaching position can offer him is a big bag of money. Now, not to say Phil Knight and Nike couldn't make it interesting in a bidding war if, and that's a big if, Dan Lanning wanted to go. But as expected, he clearly didn't. Shout out Matt Preem here. Here is the full statement from Dan Lanning. I'll just give it to you guys. This is from the horse's mouth, straight up. And shout out Matt Preem for putting this tweet out. All right.
Back, Matt. There's obviously been some talk about you and another school in the last couple days. Just your thoughts on that, how you handled that, and just your commitment to Oregon.
Yeah, we talk about outside noise a lot in our program. I guess the reality here is, one, my name and our program would never be a topic of conversation for another school if we didn't have something here that everybody else wanted. And the reason we have something here that everybody else wants, that's because of what our players, our coaches, the support that exists here at Oregon have created. I think I've been really, really clear here since day one. Everything I want exists right here. I'm not going anywhere. There's zero chance that I would be coaching somewhere else. I've got unfinished business here. There's a lot that I want to accomplish here at Oregon. My number one priority is being elite here at Oregon. And we have the resources, the tools. Anybody that can't understand why you would want to be here at this place doesn't understand exactly what exists here, right? Like what I've said before, with a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old, to be able to raise your family in a community like this, to be able to compete for championships and have the ability to get the resources you need. You know, a lot of coaches hang on to these moments and they don't do anything or don't say anything. One, because they don't want egg on their face when they decide to do something else, right? 2, because they're concerned about things that I'm not concerned about, like getting a better contract. Like, I'm taken care of extremely well here at Oregon. I have the resources I need here at Oregon to be really, really successful. I'm not motivated by that. I'm motivated by winning. I'm motivated by being elite here. And our players deserve my complete focus. Our fans deserve the best product on the field. So it's outside noise. It didn't matter before. It doesn't matter now. I'll continue to say it till I'm blue in the face. I want to be here at Oregon. That hasn't changed. That won't change.
Bam. So straight from the horse's mouth, guys. Dan loves it here at Oregon. I'll continue to harp on this, guys. The Oregon football head coaching job is one of the top jobs in the country. You have everything you need to win a national championship here. And I know it might sound a little crazy because, as you know, we don't have one yet, but that's not to say history can't be broken. Look, Dan can recruit across the country. The brand, the Oregon O, is recognized nationwide. And he has the backing of probably the greatest booster in all of college athletics. He has it all here at Oregon. His family loves it here. He loves the community. He loves Eugene. He wants to be here, and that's clear. But just expect this, Duck fans. Just expect it every time a big-time head coaching position opens up, that his name's going to be thrown in the fire. Good news is the Auburn one opened up last season. A&M opened up this year. And he has a smile on his face and declined both publicly. So there's that. Now let's go on to Arizona State, man. Richie, sorry, just need to cover that, man. Need to get that off my chest, man. All this talk about him leaving, need to get that off my chest. So let's get into it. We got a big-time matchup. Hey, I loved it too, man. I was pumped because after what Duck fans were going through after, Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal, this revolving door, it's good. All right. Speaking of great coaches, Kenny Dillingham. So look, Dillingham is one of my favorite coaches. He's our former offensive coordinator here, no doubt. The Oregon fan base is certainly familiar with him. I personally am a big fan of him. I love his offensive schemes. I love his energy, that he brings when he speaks to the media, when he speaks to his team. You could tell this guy is passionate. I obviously, it's obviously been a little bit of a struggle in year one, but in reality, it was kind of to be expected. Most of the media had Arizona State as a rebuilding season this year. It's even harder when day one you're not able to make a bowl game due to sanctions from the NCAA. How do you feel Kenny has done in year one? What are some positives that you can take away in year one? And what do you think Kenny still needs to kind of work on as he goes through his debut season?
Yeah. So real quick, for what it's worth, it wasn't even the NCAA. It was our previous athletic director, Ray Anderson, who stepped down earlier this week, did self-imposed sanctions because of the predecessors. Imagine that. Imagine you get a brand new job and they say, yeah, well, we're going to deny your bonus because the person before you did a bad job. That's what they did to Kenny Dillingham. They're like, sorry, man, like someone has to get punished, and it's him. And it's like you're already setting him behind the 8 ball, and you're setting him up to fail by doing that. You have graduate players who had nothing to do with all of the recruiting violations that were going on, and it's like, why are they getting punished? It's just not fair. It's built up so much frustration for a rebuilding program, for a team that had over 40 new faces between the recruiting class and the transfer portal. I mean, this is basically a new 2-deep depth chart on offense and defense. And when you consider all those circumstances, 3 wins is not that bad. Like, you've matched your win total from last year. You won 3 games last year. You've matched your win total from Pac-12 play last year. 2 games last year, 2 games this year. So at worst, you're what you were last year, and you're doing it with 10 times, 100 times more adversity than what you were facing a year ago. The one thing that I've really noticed about these guys too is you sit there and you look at the way these guys played a year ago, and they felt defeated. Some of them didn't feel like they put all their effort in. This year, they're playing with their hair on fire. They're running on every single down. It's hot motors for all these guys. If they're not pushing themselves, they're not here. Like, we have seen players get dismissed from this program this year because they did not want to play the Kenny Dillingham style of football. They weren't interested in that. So when you are instilling a new culture, that's what I'm looking for. When you're instilling a new culture in a place that has so much work that needs to be done, seeing those guys immediately gravitate to you and immediately buy in and want to figure out how to be those kind of players, it's beyond impressive. So you look at Kenny Dillingham, who's the youngest coach in the NCAA and feels like he's wise beyond his years. You're just really happy to see that they're making the progress forward that they have. 3 wins sucks. Absolutely. They might not have any more wins this year. Oregon's really, 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 really good. They have no business winning that game. If they do, I will go absolutely insane. Against U of A is ranked right now, and I hate them to pieces. I've said this on my podcast, I will never take ASU to lose that game. The reality is they're not going to be favored in that game. But bottom line is this was never going to be a season where you were looking at a record. I see Brian Callahan in the comments here was saying, let's be honest, was ASU going to get to a bowl game anyways? No, probably not. But the the biggest thing with that was just that you took that opportunity away from the team. And it's easy to feel defeated at that point, but these guys rose up to the occasion and embraced that opportunity. So this wasn't a year to judge based off wins and losses. It was to judge based off of culture. And I'd say these guys responded pretty well to that.
100%. You mentioned recruiting in there, and that's a big time part of building this, a football team. Kenny, in year one, landed Jaden Rashada. That was an interesting story, him coming to Arizona State. Right now, they currently rank 10th in the Big 12, and I mentioned the Big 12 because that's where you guys are going for next year.
I love it.
In the 2024 team recruiting rankings, according to 247 Sports, it looks like. So, as we know, if you don't know already, both Arizona and Arizona State, they're off. Arizona State, it's a beautiful campus. I was out there. I just explained this before we hopped on. I went to Sedona, that area, and I came through Phoenix. Beautiful area. Tempe out there is a beautiful area, beautiful campus. Got to check it out for the first time. Great place to recruit. A lot of 4 or 5 stars out there. How do you think Kenny Dillingham and his staff will be able to recruit at a higher level and become more competitive?
They're doing a really good job just attacking and being aggressive in their recruiting. At one point in time for this year's recruiting class with Arizona State, during Herm Edwards, there were 4 kids, and that's it. Kenny Dillingham comes in, 3 of them decommit, 1 of them stays, CJ Fight, who's become a mainstay on the defense, but neither here nor there. He ends up recruiting 20 kids, right? He gets these kids to come in, they attack the transfer portal. What he's done in a short amount of time has been remarkable. And no, there's not 5 stars here. There's not a lot of 4 stars. But the point is that you're taking a group that, like a program that really did not put any effort into trying to recruit these kids. You hear a lot of stuff behind the scenes of just how bad they were recruiting, especially in your own backyard. Arizona is very quietly one of the better states for high school football kids. No, they're not Florida. They're not California. They're not Texas, Louisiana, whatever. But they're still in that second tier at worst. And they're not recruiting those kids in their backyard. These kids are leaving. These Mark Andrews and these B. John Robinsons of the world don't stay in the state of Arizona. They go elsewhere because Arizona State University is not pursuing them. Well, that's changed. Kenny Dillingham has what he calls Activate the Valley, and he is working so hard to maintain these kids that stay inside the valley. If no one's familiar with Arizona, essentially you have Phoenix, and then you have a bunch of surrounding cities, so like Glendale, Peoria, Surprise, stuff like that. That's what we call the valley. And you have Arizona State in Tempe, which is a part of that valley. So when we say activate the valley, what we're saying is get these kids that are in your backyard and have them stay home. And that's what they're starting to do now. And that's what they're working on doing. But they're also doing a good job in Texas. They've branched out to a little bit of Louisiana. California is not far. But this is definitely a new regime that has that interest in wanting to be a good recruiting school. I have no doubt in my mind that the 5 stars will come. Are they coming next year? Who knows? The year after? Who knows? I do believe that at some point in time, when you have a staff that is so hell-bent on trying to get things changed here, and you have the guys in place that are good recruiters, it's not just Kenny Dillingham. You have Brian Carrington and Rashad Samples and Brian Ward. They've got a lot of really good recruiters. The next step is with a new athletic director to eventually be put in place. Hopefully get your NIL up. And once the NIL collective is firmly established, sky's the limit for Arizona State. I'm really excited about what they can do. But as far as the recruiting goes, they've got the right people in place. You just got to execute at this point.
Yeah, well, Kenny was here too, man. He was an electric recruiter for the offensive side of the football. And I'm excited. Yeah,
Before
exactly.
He decommitted, obviously, but
yeah. And then, Chip leaving now, possibly, right? That's been out there.
Dude, could you imagine he goes back to Oregon? That'd be nuts.
Who knows what's going to happen here? That's been surrounding the Oregon Twitter a little bit and see, the talk, so we'll see what happens there. Oh, man. All right, let's talk about this Arizona State offense a little bit. It hasn't been pretty all season, just averaging 17 points per game. The quarterback position is a big part of that. It's been kind of a revolving door due to injury. Kenny's trying to find a solid quarterback one. Good news is There's been reports of Jaden Rashada practicing this week, and in my opinion, he's your best quarterback. Richie, if you will, go through kind of each quarterback on this team that's played this season and break down what kind of skills they possess, because each quarterback has thrown like 38 or more passes this season. Now, a lot of them have played.
Yeah, there's been quite a significant amount of snaps for these guys, and nobody has looked great. Jaden Rashada has looked really, really quality. He looks like a freshman. He's learning the ropes, but he has looked good in the 2 games he appeared in. It does not sound like he's going to be good to go for Saturday, unfortunately. Dillingham said essentially he is at best case an emergency quarterback, and hopefully what emergency means is when Trenton Bourguet inevitably throws interceptions and there's a lot of 3 and outs, they go to Rashada, but it's just going to depend on his health. And if he's not good to go, it's not a guy you want to trot out there. So beyond Rashada, who's got tons of potential, you've got Trenton Bourguet, who's a great individual. I have a little bit of a personal relationship with him. Super nice kid, but there's no denying that he struggled this year. He only has 1 touchdown pass. He's got 4 interceptions, and the Sun Devils as a whole through the air are just not getting it done. You've got a total of 7 touchdown passes. 3 of them came from Rashada in the first 2 games of the year, and one of them just came here this past weekend by running back Cameron Scadaboo. That should paint the picture of just how much they have struggled to do anything through the air. So when it comes to the quarterback play, yeah, they're really struggling to get anything going. If Rashada truly is the best case emergency option that Dillingham is describing him to be, it's going to be a long day. And I like our defense. I don't love our defense to be able to keep pace with an offense that can't do their job, because that's been the case all year. Is the defense plays stellar, but eventually fatigue sets in. And what's going to weigh down this defense is the quarterback play indirectly. So if Bourguet comes out and struggles, I mean, Jacob Conover is just not a good quarterback, man. He's completing under 30% of his passes. He's your backup quarterback right now. So if Bourguet gets injured, because he's been injured twice this year, so if he gets injured and you have to have Conover come out, I just don't like your chances. It's really interesting. Brian, I love that point. Your D had the Huskies by the balls for 3 quarters. They actually didn't even give up an offensive touchdown in that game. The only touchdown was a pick 6, which is mind-boggling to me. My question when it comes to Oregon is that felt to me like lightning in a bottle, because not only did you do it to Washington, you did it in Seattle. I don't know. Yeah. You play that 100 more times if they do it more than 10 times. That, to me, that's the same thing with Oregon. Is it possible? Sure. Any given Saturday. And we've seen the potential, but that would be, to me, if they did it to Oregon, that's another like 1 out of 100 kind of tries. So the potential's there. I actually really like you brought that out. Shout out to you, Brian. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Oh yeah. I think I seen a stat out there. It was like, I think you guys have only allowed more than 30 points twice this season. I think, or something like that. So yeah, it's crazy. You guys' defense is competing out there. Going back to the quarterback position real quick, sounds like, so Rashada's emergency quarterback. It sounds like your guys are going with Bourguet then.
That's probably the direction they're going to go. Like I said, I hope what emergency means is if everything really starts to go downhill, because you're going up against an absolute buzzsaw of a defense. That's Oregon. Those kids fly around the field. They wreak havoc. It's a good unit under Dan Lanning, and it makes me very nervous to be going up against them. The ASU is going to have to get very creative offensively and try to minimize what the quarterbacks can do. But I'm hoping that what the emergency means is that if and when the quarterbacks that are going to start this game don't play well, that maybe put Rashada in. But again, if it's an injury thing, then of course I don't want you to rush him back in.
I know Kenny Dillingham certainly likes to have the run game be an effective part of his offenses. Who are some of these running backs that Oregon will be coming at, that Oregon will see coming at them all game?
One of the guys is Cameron Scadaboo, and I myself have trademarked a nickname for him, the people's running back. He does it all. He runs it, he catches it, he passes it, and get this, he even punts it. He's actually leading the team in 50-yard punts this year. It's absolutely insane what he's been able to do. He's averaging 44 yards per punt, which leads the team. It's not even close how effective he has been this year for the team. When he's on the field, number 4, you will see him. He's going to be doing more than one thing for the team. He runs it, he catches it. They do trick plays with him. They do pooch punts. They line him up out wide. They do a little bit of everything with him. I'm sure if they wanted him to do kick returns, they would, but Elijah Badger is really good at kick returning, and we'll touch on him a little later, I'm sure. But with Scadaboo, he's the do-it-all guy, and even more than that. He's the guy that if I'm Oregon, I'm going in for all intents and purposes to take him out of the game in any way that I possibly can. Beyond him, DeCarlos Brooks has only played 4 games this year, and it's such a bummer because when he's out there, Cameron Scadaboo becomes even better. You have thunder and more thunder with those two. They just absolutely beat you down with physicality. But the problem is Brooks has only played 4 games this year because he's been banged up. I have no idea what his availability is for this game, but I just don't know if he's going to be out there. There's other guys I like. There's a freshman, Kyson Brown, who I'm really intrigued with. But overall, it's definitely Cameron Scadaboo's backfield. If he's not going, this offense isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's not a Kenny Dillingham offense without pushing that ball down the field to the wide receivers. Now, it's been a bit of a struggle to get the ball down the field for Arizona State this year, but they do have a few guys to look out for. Who are some of these wide receiver threats that Oregon's going to be dealing with?
Well, yeah, I mentioned one of them was Elijah Badger, and Badger is so far ahead of everybody else on the team in statistic categories. It's insane. 58 catches leads the team. Next closest is Jalen Conyers, the tight end, with 25. 649 receiving yards for Badger leads the team. The next closest is, you guessed it, Jalen Conyers with 313. So he has doubled second place, more than doubled in receptions and yards. He's got 3 touchdowns. That leads the team, although that's not a ton of touchdown passes that have been thrown this year. He's as important as Cameron Scadaboo is to the passing game. He's a high-volume guy. His jersey number is 2. You will also be seeing him a lot. If for no other reason than I 100% anticipate he's going to get at least 10 targets in this game. Probably more than that. I think one of my bold predictions that I don't have like official is I think he gets 15 targets. Like the only reason they wouldn't throw at him is if he's he's guarded by Darrelle Revis. And even then, I would imagine the Sun Devils still try to funnel him the ball just because of how important he is. So it has nothing to do with the Oregon defense, which I still think is very good. It's just that you have seen such minimal production from everybody else that you almost have to go to Elijah Badger. The good news for Arizona State is he creates, and he's somebody who is able to make the most out of his opportunities because, again, with 58 receptions, he still has a very healthy 11.2 yards per reception. He's also pretty dynamic on kick returns. He is averaging 28.9 on the year. He has 2 massive kick returns of over 60 yards. He's a big play ready to happen. So he's a beast. Another guy that's worth noting is Troy O'Mary. I'm a big fan of him. Number 9 on the offense. He's the big post-up guy. He's 6'3" or 6'4", depending on where you look. They like to get it to him on a fly route, and they really like to turn his way in the red zone. I don't know how much you're going to see him because it's been very inconsistent on a week-to-week. But what I can tell you is Elijah Badger is going to be someone you see a lot. But he could easily be 10 catches for like 60 yards. It truly is just about how they try to get him the ball and how quickly Oregon is able to bring him down because he's a pinball. So he's not going to go down on first contact, might not go down on second contact. Just going to have to play smart with him.
100%. Brian Callahan checking in again. He says, I sure hope Bucky is at full strength. He was limping at the end of the last game. Yeah, so this is something that I've been asked about. And look, this is the thing, is Oregon is so loaded at running back. I mean, they got Jordan James. They got that Noah Whittington is down for the year. Dante Dowdell looks to be a force as a freshman. Jaden Lamar can definitely enter the game. And that's not to say that those two freshmen are at Bucky's level, but look, Oregon's favored big time here. If they're supposed to handle business like they're supposed to here, this is the game where you can kind of rest your players that have nicks or injuries. If it's supposed to go how it's supposed to go. And George James, we've seen it. We've seen him carry the load. True sophomore George James come behind when Noah Whittington go down and really carry that load and be a big-time running back. So I don't think this is a game necessarily where you even need the run game to be a strength. I think this is a game where the pass game can really be a strength according to matchups. So I really like Arizona State's front seven defensively, really. And we're going to get into that. So let's flip over to the defensive side and let my guy Richie Bradshaw here break it down. It's going to be kind of a tough recipe to find success to defend this Oregon offense. It's led by Bo Nix, the dark horse Heisman contender right now. He leads, actually, I don't even know if I should say dark horse anymore. He leads the betting odds right now in DraftKings to win the thing. Oregon enters this game. They scored 30-plus points in every game they played this season between Nix at quarterback, Troy Franklin, Tej Johnson on the outside, Bucky Irvin if he plays, Jordan James on the run game. Arizona State's going to have their hands full. Kenny Dillingham knows this offense. He knows all these players. I've been feeling that he's going to have a pretty good game plan ready for this game, and I feel like he's had this game circled ever since he's got the job. How well does these Arizona State players execute that game plan is kind of the big question for me. If you're going to beat Oregon, you're going to have to disrupt some things up front at the line of scrimmage. Okay, if you're going to beat Oregon, it's something that Washington really did well in that matchup. Who are some guys on this front seven for Arizona State that are pretty pesky?
I will tell you that the biggest main attraction for us is our edge rushers, and BJ Green, number 35, is one of the best kept secrets in the Pac-12. He is very quietly put together a 6-sack season. I would love to take a look at his quarterback hits. He's one of the top 5 players in quarterback pressures this year, according to Pro Football Focus. He legitimately is an absolute terror off the edge. He's going to be really important to this game. You're also going to have a couple other edge rushers to rotate with Clayton Smith, who has 3.5 sacks on the year, Prince Dorbah, who should be back from injury. He's also got 6 sacks, just like BJ. If Dorbah's not good to go, then Clayton Smith is still a beast. The interior, they've got graduate transfer Deshaun Mallory wearing number 0. He is an absolute force. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Lineman of the Week after leading the team in tackles with 9 a week ago. He had a half sack. He had a tackle for loss. He's a disruptor, and he's a big physical guy. He's a 300-pounder. He uses his hands well. He's very disruptive. He's somebody that's going to be a game wrecker on the interior. The good news for the Ducks is I know that Bo Nix has been very rarely sacked this year. 4 sacks. He's been sacked 4 times this year. And Arizona State, when they go up against elite offensive lines, haven't been able to really get too much done. When they played Washington, as great as that defense played, they did not sack Michael Penix in that game. And this is another game where they will have to be able to pin their ears back and play at an extremely high level if they're going to be able to bring Nix down. And again, Nix does not get sacked at Oregon. It's a rarity. I was talking to one of my buddies earlier. I was like, how many times do you think Bo Nix has been sacked in his 2 years at Oregon? And he was like, probably 43. And I was like, nope, it's 9. 9 sacks in his 2 years. And he was flabbergasted. And I was like, don't worry, I can't believe it either. So Bo Nix doesn't get sacked. So if that's going to be the case again in this, then you just need your edges to be able to set the edge, hopefully against a run. But it's going to be about Deshaun Mallory on the inside. I love interior freshman CJ Fight as well. I mentioned him a little earlier. He's your classic nose guard. He's just going to take on those double teams. So with 2 beefy interior guys and plenty of depth on the edge, this is probably the strongest point of the Sun Devils defense, is that front 4 and that pass rush.
100%. And you mentioned it, Oregon O-line, really elite. if that O-line is doing its thing, you're going to need that secondary to step up. Who are some players in the secondary that for Arizona State that are going to need to, look to slow down Bo Nix in this hot Oregon offense coming in?
It starts with Ro Torrance. Torrance is our corner. He's an outside boundary guy, number 9. He is 6'4" is what he's listed. I would guess he's closer to 6'3". But for a guy as big and as long as he is, he moves very well. Had an up and down start to the year, but over the last month, he's become pretty much what we thought he would be. And that's as close to a lockdown corner as we've had in the last several years. He, pound for pound, is just so utterly talented. He can flip his hips. He's good at press. There's very little things that he can't do for your team. He actually just accepted his invite to the Shrine Bowl game for the upcoming draft process, which means we're going to lose him, which is really unfortunate because I was hoping to get him at least another year. But he's got a very difficult task of going against Troy Franklin, who is one of my favorite players in the entire country. As a Baltimore Ravens fan in the pros, I am hoping and praying that Troy Franklin somehow ends up in purple and black. He's going to have his hands full. They got another quality safety there in Shamari Simmons, who is one of the top tacklers on the team. I believe he is second in tackles. The Sun Devils only have 5 turnovers this year. He's got 3 of them, 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries. He finds his way around the football field. Very good, very talented. Simmons and Torrance are definitely the guys that are going to have a lot of spotlight on them for this upcoming game.
100%, man. Can't wait for this upcoming game. We got number 6 Oregon going to Arizona State. I'm here with Richie Bradshaw, host of Locked On Sun Devils. We're breaking it down. Guys, you know what else I love? I love making money while watching sports. If you love to do that too, go ahead and play some Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests, guys. Here's how it works. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks, so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app, guys. The only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts. So you're not stuck with a bad pick. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selection odds and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey Sportsbook. You can trade sports like stocks. You control the action, ride your picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly. And there's no house advantage, guys. One of my favorite things about this app, you beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it. Make picks, make moves, make money. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. Link in the description for more if you guys are interested in that to make some hard-earned cash. And it's 18 plus. You ain't even got to be 21. You can be 18. So if you want to do it responsibly, of course. Link in the description below. All right. What everybody's been waiting for. Let's do this. We got our 3 keys to the game. What Arizona State needs to do to win. What Oregon needs to do to win. We're going to both break it down. And then in the end, our final score prediction, guys, we're going to get into it. So, Richie, I'll let you go ahead and go first. What is Arizona State? The 3 things they need to do to win this game.
First thing is they need to do what USC did not do last week, and that's contain the big play. Arizona State is really good at just letting themselves down. They will set the sticks back 3rd and 20 or whatever, and then let the opposing team convert. They allow long drives. They allow 4th down conversions. But then you have the bright sides, because last week UCLA went for it on 4th down 4 times and didn't get it. So they have the capability to be able to bite down and limit the big plays. And Oregon is as big a challenge as you're going to find with Troy Franklin and Bucky Irving, if he is able to go, and Tez Johnson. I almost said Ty Johnson. Tez Johnson. They've got a lot of weapons that you're going to need to find a way to bite down and contain them as best you possibly can. And I think that's the best way to put it is contain. You're not going to stop these guys. You're not going to stop Bo Nix. The best thing you can do is contain and hopefully minimize the damage that they can do by eliminating the 40 yards, the 50 yards, the 60-yard plays. Second key to victory here is to maintain the unique play calling. What do I mean by that? Last week, if you look at what ASU did against UCLA, they did this absolutely insane offensive alignment. They called it like a spread wide formation or something like that. And what they would do is you would have your center, and then Trenton Bourguet would be lined up in like a shotgun formation. Then you'd have like 3 offensive linemen to the far side of the left, 2 to the far right of the field, and then you'd have your receivers and tight ends sprinkled in there. And essentially what that did was you took Laiatu Latu, who for my money is the best defensive player in college football for UCLA, and the rest of a good pass rush, and you took him out of the game because you can stack the line if you want to, but because Trenton's in a shotgun formation, you're going to have to get to him pretty quick, or he's going to throw a screen pass to the side with 3 offensive linemen, and they're only going to have to block 2 guys. Like, by doing that, you're taking away UCLA's strength. So ASU, I'm not saying you need to do that spread wide again, but they're going to come into this game with some kind of idea of how they're going to be slowing down Oregon's defense. They're going to take a look at what Oregon does best, and they're going to try to find a way to beat it. And it's going to be unique, and it's going to be very unorthodox, very unorthodox. I mentioned Cameron Scadaboo does pooch punts. He gets under center for what we call the Sparky formation, because we'll be damned if we call it the Wildcat formation. Never in my life. We have our Sparky formation. We do all sorts of stuff to the point where you legitimately have to sit there and you're like, how do you adjust to this when you can't even predict what's going to happen? So you got to maintain those unique play callings. And then finally, touchdowns, not field goals. You're not going to win this game 9-6. I promise you that. If you're going to win this game, you need to get into the end zone. And this has been something that Arizona State has struggled with all year long, especially through the air. So if there were ever a time to get that straightened down and figured out, this is the game to get that figured out. Because if you're not going to be able to get into the end zone and you're consistently kicking field goals, which, first of all, they don't even do that much. They go for it so often. And that's where it's going to really dictate this game, because you could get a really good 3-and-out on Bo Nix and Oregon. You could maybe force a turnover, right? Get a very, very rare interception. But if you are not scoring a touchdown off of those opportunities, I promise you this game's going to get out of hand quickly. So you need to capitalize as often as you can by getting into the end zone. That doesn't mean not kicking field goals when it's appropriate, but if you're settling for 3 points every drive, you're going to lose this game really, really fast.
Bam, there you guys go. Richie Bradshaw's 3 keys to the game versus number 6 Oregon. He's got number 1, contain the big play. Number 2, maintain those unique play calls that we've seen against UCLA. It was pretty crazy. And then number 3, touchdown, not field goals. Of course, if you're going to beat the Ducks, you got to get in the end zone. All right, guys, what do the Ducks have to do to win this game and not repeat 2019? I know us Oregon fans, look, we took one look at that schedule and we seen flashbacks of 2019 repeating in our head. Look, and for number 1, this is all due respect to Arizona State. I got end the game by halftime here, okay? This is all due respect. I don't think Dan's going to allow 2019 to happen again. These are 2 completely different teams from 4 years ago. If you squeeze the confidence out of Arizona State early, get up big by the half, and get the win like you're supposed to, I think that allows, number 1, your starters and your injured players that we kind of talked about, guys like Bucky Irving, who ended up limping towards the end of last game. Our 2 corners, Kyrie Jackson, Delio Florence, have been a little nicked up as of late. If you go up early, you allow those players to kind of rest in this game and get prepped for big-time matchups up ahead. And then number 2, get the kicking game figured out, man. In a game that, should be won, you can work on your weaknesses. The kicking game has been a struggle for Oregon as of late. Camden Lewis this season, 5 missed field goals, one game time field goal he missed at Washington out of those 5, and then 5 kickoff penalties for kicking the ball out of bounds. Simply put, guys, not good enough. With Oregon heading into games where it's going to be close, where games are going to be, needed, where Camden Lewis and this kicking game is going to need to come through, we're going to need him back on track and get his confidence back, because it's obvious, man, when he missed that field goal at Washington, something changed. Something changed up here. And kickers, that's the number 1 thing they need is their head in the right space. And man, oh man, it's been a struggle. So number 2, if you're able to get Camden on the field, get some field goals in, instead of going for it, let's try to get this field goal game going. Especially if you're up like you're supposed to be. Instead of trying to be aggressive, let's try to get Camden his confidence back going in late in the season. Or let's see if we got a backup kicker, man. Let's see who we got behind him, because it's been a struggle. And if you're not doing your job, I hate to say it, I love Camden. I love his personality and who he is, but man, he's been struggling lately. So I love to see that. And then number 3, I got keep penalties low. We just talked about working on weaknesses in this game, and this is certainly one of them. Oregon this season, more times than not, have had a lot of penalties on themselves, self-inflicted wounds, right? I want to see this get shored up as we head to championship and bowl season, guys. We cannot be beating ourselves with penalties, especially on the road here at Arizona State. Their fans, they might have a 3-win season here, but let me tell you, they've been competitive in their games. Their fan base gets wild down there, so don't expect anything to lay down low. I want to see Oregon figure it out. So for Oregon to win this game, I got number 1. Let's try to end it by halftime. Let's get this thing done like we're supposed to. Number 2, get the kicking game figured out. Really want to see that kicking game come through. And then number 3, keep the penalties low, man. Last game against USC, we had a lot of penalties. Texas Tech, when we were on the road, first road game of the season, we had a lot of penalties, almost beat us there. So let's figure it out, man. Number 1, end the game by halftime. Number 2, get the kicking game figured out. Number 3, keep penalties low. All right, Richie, what everybody's been waiting for, I'll give you a drum roll here. Here we go. Let's do the final score predictions, man. So I'm pretty sure everybody has an idea of where we're going, but I always like to throw these final score predictions because it's always fun to see like how close can we get. Is it going to be like, if you got it exactly right, man, we should have went to Vegas. You know what I mean? All right, let's do it. Richie, what do you got for this game?
As much as I want to say Arizona State over Oregon 100-0, look, maybe this is another Washington game where everything just goes right and you control the line of scrimmage and you find those rare turnovers and you're able to stall out the Oregon offense. The unfortunate thing is your offense has not been able to answer the call. Otherwise, you would have beat Washington. And as I mentioned earlier, that was lightning in a bottle. I just don't see that happening another time. If it were to happen again, it'd be this game, right? Because Kenny Dillingham knows this team. He's familiar with some of these guys, like Bo Nix is especially familiar with Bo Nix and the way that he plays football, both as time at Oregon and at Auburn. He was his offensive coordinator. People forget. He's familiar very intimately with Bo Nix. So in theory, this could be a game that is a trap game for Oregon. But with that being said, I'm not somebody that likes to bet the house on a possible what if. I'm going with what I think will happen. And what I think and what should happen is Oregon comes into Tempe and they walk away pretty comfortably. I got Oregon in this game 44-17. Could it be close? Sure. But if you're asking me to be an analyst, put my analyst cap on and not be biased, I'm taking Oregon pretty big in this one.
All right, Richie, he's got 44-17 Oregon over Arizona State on the road as he gives us a tear. I feel it, man. I feel it. Hey, but like I said, Arizona State, I love the way they're going. They got the right guy. Now you guys, you mentioned a new athletic director that seems to be going in the right direction as well. So Big 12 on the way.
Up from here.
Hey, it's only up from here, man. This is the only way it can go. And this is the thing. 2019, it gave me shades of that. Look, when I seen the schedule, it gave me shades. It gave me scares. And for all the people that actually subscribed to us at the beginning of the season and kept that memory of me choosing the Ducks to lose this game in the preseason, I actually chose the Ducks to lose to Arizona State in the preseason.
I'm here for it.
And I based it off that 2019 game. Really, that's the kind of, my judgment. And a lot of people told me I was crazy. And a lot of people came into my DM this week and told me how crazy I am still. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who did that. And, and for being locked into the show the way you are. No doubt. But look, I too, guys, I had PTSD, World War II type memories of that 2019 Jaden. Or who was it? Jaden Daniels.
Was Jaden Daniels.
I almost said Jaden Rashad. Jaden Daniels.
Love him. Love him.
You see what he's doing now. Upset over the Ducks. I took one look at the schedule. I seen us playing in the desert in November. I chalked it up as a loss. And yes, you guys did try to tell me I'm crazy. And that Arizona State, they didn't have the roster to compete with us. I just thought stubbornly that Kenny Dillingham is a damn good coach. I thought he would surprise the people in year one. You called me crazy. You guys were right, all right? Not that Kenny Dillingham's not a good coach, but that Arizona State just isn't ready to compete with the Ducks yet, not the top upper echelon teams. And you see, the beautiful things about hosting your own show is that you can change your picks whenever you feel like it and not care. So guess what, guys? I got the Ducks big, 48-10. I'm changing my pick from the preseason. I got the Ducks 48-10. Look, Ducks are just rolling right now. I think this is an opportunity where you can see the Ducks maybe go up big in the first half, get their backups in, maybe rest their starters, see what's ahead in the schedule. I'll respect Arizona State. Look, I think Kenny's a great coach. They got a good quarterback for their future in Jaden Rashada. Those two together, pairing up and building around him, going to a new conference and seeing what they can do, over there where I think Oklahoma and Texas, they're off to the SEC now. So you guys can build something up here and take off. But this year in this matchup in today's age, I don't think this is 4 years ago. I think you guys have a different quarterback situation. I think Oregon, this is a special year. I got Ducks 48-10 in this matchup. Richie's got Ducks 44-17, kind of similar scores almost. All right, man. I love it. I'm excited for this game because, as you know, in a lot of these matchups this year in the Pac-12, this is it. This is the last rodeo until whenever we see each other again. So, we'll see what happens. All right. So for the end here, I like to go over the Pac-12 Week 12 schedule and do a quick pick'em of who's going to win each game with you, man. Let's start with the Friday night game. Colorado at Washington State. Colorado and Washington State both have kind of had dismantling seasons toward the end. Both started out real hot and now kind of cooled way off. This is the thing. I got Washington State in this game simply because it's at night and it's at home. I think they want to finish their season kind of strong before they go play Washington. I think they're going to get a nice win at home against Colorado.
Yeah. Funny how both those teams were ranked at one point in the year and both have had ridiculously bad slumps. Wazoo actually lost to Arizona State. Like, this has been a team that is really slumped, but Colorado is slumped equally. I think Colorado's a more talented team, but I'm going to take the home team. Like you said, going to Pullman is very difficult. It's going to be cold. Not that Colorado's not used to cold, but I'll take the home team here. Basically a pick 'em for me.
100%. Yeah, it's kind of a pick. I bet it's going to be close, but I just feel like Washington State at night, being at home, yeah, I'm going to lean that way. That's a Friday night matchup, guys, at 7:30 if you guys want to check in here. Before we get into the Saturday night games and pick those, I got a quick question here from Tristan Cragen. Would it make sense for Oregon to rest Jackson Powers Johnson in the corners this game for the Oregon State game? Yeah, even include Bucky Irvin in that. If Dan wants to go that route, we do have the depth. We recruited at a level where guys could probably step up and win this game. But look, if guys are ready to go, I'm not going to just say, hey, let's just rest guys for the sake of rest. If guys are healthy enough to play, I want to see them play. But at the same time, look, if you want to avoid injury, if you want to play it safe, I think the smart route would be, I've been saying in the whole podcast, look, if you get up big early, maybe in the first half, by halftime, the game is out of reach for Arizona State. Yeah, pull them out, get your backups in there. I think that's a smart route. I don't want to just see guys rest for, just the sake of rest against certain opponents. Play your full force because at the end of the day, you don't know how this game's going to go. You think in 2019, the Duck fans were going into that stadium thinking they were going to win. Well, you all see what happened. So let's not get too cocky and just be like, let's just rest all our players. No, man, we still got to compete out here. All right. Jordan Steele says, Scope Ducks, what's the status of Kyrie and Florence? So far, what I've heard is these guys have been practicing and they seem ready to go. So it looks like we're going to have our two corners for this game. All right. Let's get into the Saturday night slate here. We got number 22, Utah, at number 17, Arizona. Man, what a game. And Arizona is getting all the teams at home. They are a lucky dog. This is the thing, man. I think Utah, they're pretty mad about losing to Oregon the way they did. I mean, Arizona State got the matchup after that, and I felt bad for Arizona State after that. But look, Utah, their defense is something else, man. They're physical. Arizona's the same way. They've had a pretty good year, beating teams they probably shouldn't have beat. But I got Utah on this one, man, in a close game. I think Utah's going to do just enough to get it done. on the road.
You know I'm taking Utah, but from a non-biased standpoint, I agree with you fully. Utah's got a great defense. They're actually getting a few things going offensively. I know Devon Vele at wide receiver is a stud when they're actually able to get him the football. The last 2 weeks have been very good for him. You know, I got firsthand experience watching him dismantle Arizona State. They're a pissed off football team, and U of A is they're riding high right now. They are looking for a team that is, getting ready to be humbled. And I think Utah is a team that is capable of humbling them. Give me Utah.
All right. Me and Richie both got Utah. Our guy Brian Callahan's got Arizona. He likes Fafita. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a good game. All right. UCLA at USC. I got USC in this one, man. I just don't think UCLA's got enough offense. I think Chip, there's already reports about him being on the way out. I think UCLA is kind of laying down right now. I got USC at home.
100%. This is a team that clearly has lost the faith and the hope in Chip Kelly being the guy. All the reports are he's going to be out at the end of the year. This is just a game that's really going to seal that fate for him. I got USC, and I got USC big in this game.
And then we got Cal at Stanford, 3:30 kickoff. This is a big-time rivalry for these two schools on the farm. I got Cal in this one, man. No. Here, I'm gonna switch my pick straight up. I got Stanford, man. Stanford, look, I get it. Cal's the better team here, but Stanford being at home, this is a rivalry game, and Stanford at times has surprised me during the season. I think this is one of those games where they can surprise us and get a close win over Cal at home.
This feels like another toss-up game. I'm going with Cal, even though being in Palo Alto feels like a really good advantage for Stanford. And, you know, the Stanford Cardinal are just a team that's been overlooked, and for good reason. They haven't been a good football team. Cal has been very quietly a better football team. I am going to go with the better football team in this game, but like I said, with Colorado Wazoo, this feels like a pick 'em. I think you could convince me either way.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's it. That's it, guys. That's week 12 for you. That's our preview and prediction of the Arizona State-Oregon game and our picks for college football. I also gave you the comments that Dan Lanning gave about the Texas A&M job. So this, guys, if you guys are listening to this, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I try to give you guys at least 2 podcasts a week, maybe more sometimes. Recruit interviews on the channel when the season's all over. I'll try to get all the commits for Oregon football on here and all that good stuff. Richie, where can we find your work if people want to lock in with all things Arizona State?
Yeah, you can find me at Richie Brads with a Z 36 on Twitter/X. You can find the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. What I'll leave you guys with, I hate you guys this week. Other than that, big time Ducks fan. I was telling Dominic before the show that jersey he's got in the background, Marcus Mariota, that is my all-time favorite college football quarterback. He's one of my all-time favorite players. Also, a very big Black Mamba fan. D'Anthony Thomas is probably my all-time favorite college player, period. I love the jerseys. If I did not have loyalties to Arizona State, I would be very close to being an Oregon fan. So for what it's worth, at least I'm losing to a team I like.
Love it, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It was great having you on. It was fun having you on. Everybody, go lock in with Richie if you guys want to lock in with all things Arizona State as they head to the Big 12 next year. Ducks on to the Big 10. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. If you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe button, rate the podcast on Spotify. As always, guys, go Ducks. I'll see you guys in the next one for the recap and analysis episode Sunday or Monday. Just be on the lookout on the social media. I'll give you guys the official date after the game.